So welcome everybody to the episode on Coherence. Hello, welcome everybody. And I'm doing this simultaneously live while I'm recording this podcast episode, and we're gonna give this a shot. Please, again, feel free to ask me any questions, but I wanna talk about coherence and what that actually looks like, as I have just come off a bunch of sessions with you this week already, and there seems to be a very specific plan and pattern set that y'all are running, and we're going to get into it. So one of the main factors of coming online, coming into your abilities, recognizing what your soul purpose is, recognizing what that path looks like, is understanding your mission here, what you want to create for yourself, and also how to align your passion, your purpose, what you want to do in the world, how you want to monetize that, what kind of partners you want to call into your life, what kind of possibilities and opportunities you want to call into your life. It's really about understanding where all of those things fit in to your, let's say, coherence quotient. Okay, all of it has to do with coherence. And what I mean by that is you want more synchronicity, you want more access to yourself, you want to experience more joy, you want to fall in love with somebody or create or have a partnership or change the dynamic in your partnership around feeling more seen and being held in vulnerability. You want all these things. And that has to do with how you, first of all, access to yourself, how you see yourself, creating that level of coherence, and the feedback loop that you're interacting with in everyday life. And those three things, which I talked about in the big brand workshop that I did this weekend, which, yes, was about creating something impactful and meaningful online, but really it's about synthesizing all of your gifts into a singular feeling and idea. So the three things that I talk about that I worked on a lot this week were about identity, direction, and then momentum. Those are the three things that create coherence. If you do not have the right identity running, then the direction that you're headed will be unfulfilling. Eventually that runway will run out. So if you don't have the right identity and you're moving in on a trajectory and a pathway at a very specific rate, at an individuated rate, whether or not that you feel like that is slow or moving very, very quickly, and you're having a lot of success in a short period of time, but it's connected to an identity that isn't for your highest evolutionary trajectory, then you will run into something that will arrest that trajectory. It will quite literally stop you in your tracks in order for you to make changes to awaken to a possibility and potentiality that is greater for you. So a lot of the times I will be reframing questions for you guys to ask yourself around what is the highest evolutionary trajectory and pathway for me to be experiencing myself right now, right? Some of you guys will come to me and say, okay, Talie, for those of you who have been really, really consistent, you've been working on like self-sabotage patterns, abandonment patterns, neglect patterns, the fear of feeling seen, imposter syndrome. Some of you have been working through some pretty horrendous abuse, and we're working on nervous system regulation around there and the underlining patterns around that, and then going to origin and collapsing all that stuff. And it's been this, you've gained a lot of momentum. So coherence in short is how aligned you are with your unique blueprint, with your frequency signature. Everybody has a frequency signature. Y'all have like an IP address that is unique to how you, when you logged into this reality. When you logged in, you have kind of a pathway, a blueprint for what the soul decided to learn and what it wanted to experience here. And when I tap into your guys' soul expression and your soul's mission, it's usually like kind of really, really simple and mundane and a little bit boring. And that's kind of by design, because simplicity ends up being really, really profound. It's kind of like when we see good design, it ends up being really, really simple, and it just makes sense, and it seems extremely cohered with how we experience this, let's say a brand, okay? What their message is, what they're saying, and how we feel about it, those things are coherent, okay? They have the right identity, they know who they're serving, and then the messaging supports all those things. That's the direction, and then that's the momentum that they create when they do that over and over and over again, and they create consistency. So in our lives, we will work and run through cycles of life, death, rebirth. Okay. And that life, death, rebirth, which is the free call that I'm doing on Sunday with tapping into it's like a 5th dimensional frequency, essentially. It's just love and compassion and self-actualization. We will run into hiccups when those things aren't aligned. Okay. So you have this identity, and we will run through cycles of feeling very attached and aligned with a very specific identity. And then we will run through cycles where we're very unclear and unsure about where our direction is. And that is a death process. That is the letting go phase. That's the phase that most of us will run into, will be in a state of panic. Our nervous systems will run into a state of paralysis. We will get kind of collapsed. We'll be in a state of functional freeze, which I work a lot on with you guys, moving through these states of functional freeze, where you're just constantly going and producing and in this mode of checking things off the box. And you're doing it at the compromise of your of self-sacrifice of your bodies, of yourself, especially with women who have a propensity to kind of do it all and want to do it all. And that is no longer serving you. So for example, if your soul's mission and soul's purpose is to empower others, or if your soul's mission, let's say, is to move into wild amounts of personal self-expression, and yes, it is that simple. Like thousands of sessions later, I can tell you that your soul's purpose is actually very different than what you feel it will be. It's usually extremely simple. It's simple and profound. And what it does is there's this deep calming when I tap into this for you guys, and I tell you what it is, because you're like, oh, wow, that does seem kind of really accurate. It is kind of really simple. Your nervous system settles down because the performative aspect has been arrested. Okay, that is starting to, this performative aspect of us feeling like we have to do everything, all of a sudden it freezes. It's not running the show anymore, because when you are in full alignment, you will be faced with people, places, things, opportunities, possibilities that will do 3 things. Confirm where you are, okay, in terms of a feedback loop. You're right on track. That's a synchronicity. You're doing great. Keep going. It will highlight the things that you're still running and actually need to delete for yourself. It will do that too. The third thing is it will become a wild teacher, a catalyzer in one direction or the other. And most of you guys know that you are attracting the same type of person. Like, let's say the women that I work with who want relationships, you end up kind of attracting the same kind of person. What is that person mirroring back to you? What is it showing you? Is it showing you that you need to set more boundaries up? Is it showing you that you have a propensity to self-sacrifice and overgive in relationships and anxiously attach? Is it showing you that you need to deprogram? So your identity in the rebirth cycle, once you go through this, I've done this for 20 years, or I think I'm this person, and now I've created this life based on the identity that I think I was, and I've woken up to that, and it no longer is in resonance with me, and now there's a state of panic. That state of panic is a really, really exciting phase. This is when our control kicks in, our lack of trust kicks in, our fear of the unknown kicks in, we're not sure of what we're doing next, we don't have any clarity, where are our buttholes, Talie, help me, I'm panicked. All of that happens when we don't have any visibility and we feel like we have a lack of clarity. That is the death process. If you guys have been doing frequency work with me for a while, you know that I talk about the death space. The death space is this time, these periods in between when you are letting go of identities. In the spiritual community will refer to it as an ego death. That is not what's happening, okay? The ego, is filtering itself, or let's say it's projecting itself through the filter of an identity. That's what's going on. The ego is actually quite helpful. It is a motivator. We need it. It's part of the brain. It's like a motor. If it has the right job, it's incredibly, incredibly instructive, because it will help you have your back. It will point out things that you think you need to do. It will highlight patterns for you. It will become incredibly instructive. So you're not having an ego death. You're having an identity death. And the identity deaths happen in filters and layers. They happen constantly all the time, because we are energy, right, being projected through the body, and we're constantly rendering and repixelating ourselves. What do I mean by that? When we're letting go of patterns, when we're letting go of identities, of things that we think, of people, places, and things, and all these things that we think we are, okay, where we're referencing ourselves, which I talk about in this book, which is going to get launched very, very soon for you. Very soon. This is a demo for me, which I talk about a lot in this. referencing yourself. If you're referencing outside of who you are internally, people, places, things, jobs, your role in the family, the attention and recognition and admiration of others, if you are recognizing or are creating yourself outside of yourself, of who you think you are, that eventually will run out of runway, because you are referencing yourself off of things that are outside of you, not inside of you. The people's opinions, who you think you should be, pleasing your parents, your husband, your children, your spouse, whatever, okay? So that death process, which is the death space, and when you are letting go of all of that, is this place of the unknown, and you're kind of flattened. You really don't have a lot of thought. It could come with an incredible amount of fatigue, and that happens over and over again as we cycle through these births and rebirths and death process, which is very much in the collective right now, and it's very much in the field, because this is what this time period is really for, is understanding about transcending the illusion and remembering our divinity, remembering that we're not separate, and then falling in love with the connection to something greater than ourselves, our highest expression inside, and then sharing that with everybody, sharing that love and that expression with the world. I work a lot on clarity and personal empowerment with all of you guys. Personal self-expression, authenticity, what you came here to learn. So that soul's purpose, just to kind of pull back for a second and talk about the arc. The soul's purpose is usually very, very simple. It's kind of simple and profound. And then you have a handful of lessons that you came here to override, a handful of programs. And those programs could be around self-sacrifice, fear of abandonment, not feeling seen, not owning your personal power, control, okay, trauma. You came to override patterns that have produced these types of outcomes for you. And so it's usually about 4 or 5 core patterns that fall in line with SLAVE, that acronym that I talk about in my book, around sacrifice or lack, or sacrifice and control, lack, addiction, abuse, victim, or epigenetic inheritance. Okay, you're running a version of all of that. And that is influencing everything you do until you wake up to it. So the identity aspect of how you are referencing yourself right now, of who you think you are, all of you are feeling a shift with this, especially in the last 2 weeks, the sessions. Everybody is in transition. Everybody is in a transition phase right now, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. That's why I'm so excited for you, because that means big growth is on the other side. So your identity is going to be inherently wrapped around the programs that you're running at the time and who you think you are, until you wake up to that and then you let go. The identity then fortifies the trajectory, okay, the momentum, that's the direction. Again, going back to coherence. Coherence is the name of the game. The more coherent you are with who you think you are, how you're referencing yourself in time, and how you create from that point of reference dictates your level of coherence, which is fortified by identity, direction, and speed, the momentum. So a lot of you guys kind of have a handle on who you think you are. Some of you that I work with, right? You're like, yep, I feel like I've got a good handle on this. I like where I'm kind of headed, but I feel like that can be refined, and you just need to pick up more momentum so you can move through patterns quicker. So there's some nuance to that. Another handful of you, I work, again, like I said, a majority on identity. And just to be clear really quick, identity, direction, momentum, patterns, all of those I see as frequencies, but I see them all as dimensions. So you're essentially referencing yourself in a specific dimensional coordinate based on where you are in time. And then that focus on that moment in time, like where you are right now and where you want to go, is all associated with very specific benchmarks that your soul wanted to be able to experience and achieve by a certain amount of time to keep you on track. That's why literally it is all perfect. Like, you cannot fuck this up. You cannot make a wrong move. It is literally about you becoming aware of your connection to source and becoming aware of all the things that you're not, so you can transcend the illusion. And it ends up being very, very simple. Like, I run too much control patterns. So what can I do to deprogram control in this moment? That's essentially what you can ask yourself. So when it comes to direction, I also work on trajectory with a lot of you guys, because if you don't know who you are, you're not running the identity, but you have that thing deep in you, like that knowingness that you're meant for more, there's something else that you want to experience, and you're so close to breaking through, that little knowingness is exactly the thing that you want to be working on when you're working on trajectory work. So who am I? I have a good handle on who I'm not. And I wanted to go in that direction. And I kind of feel like I wobbled a little bit. So now I'm in another death and rebirth phase, right? Now, and then the last thing you want to be worried about is momentum. And I say all of that because the patience with frequency work and the patience with awakening work is actually really frustrating for the linear mind to get its head wrapped around. Because if you came here to learn about how to wildly trust yourself, okay? If you came here to learn how to move into self-trust and you have been faced with nothing but people, places, situations, decisions that are trying to undermine your own knowing, gaslight your self-trust, do you see how perfectly that has been teed up for you to deprogram self-trust and move into unshakable self-belief? You kind of see everything is working in a polarity. It's working in the opposite of how we kind of think until we move into more singularity. So we will have fleeting moments of being deeply connected to this synchronistic resonance of who we are, right? That's normal. We're going to feel right in the money. We're going to feel like, boom, we're right here. And then that's going to loosen because we're constantly clearing and constantly working on ourselves all the time. At least you're in your, and that could be periods of where you're enjoying your life too. I mean, it's an ebb and flow, right? It's not, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not constantly healing because there's something wrong with you. You're wanting to awaken to more of your full potential because you know that you're built for more and you're tired of actually settling for less than that. Usually it's a pain point that brings people into this type of work, right? It's not like hyper levels of desire, but you know that you're built for more and you know that you have more in you and you're ready to clear more in a shorter period of time. So that's why I'm talking about the time piece, because if we have sessions together and you may or may not feel anything, it doesn't mean that the work's not working. It means that your attachment to the work, the analytical mind, the logic aspect of you is really trying to make meaning about what this shit is, okay? What this is, I haven't seen my external reality change yet. That's because you're looking outside of you for change. You can't really see what's changed within because you have been referencing outside of you this whole time. What I'm doing is I'm highlighting the fact that you have been referencing outside of you this whole time. You see? So the time piece and how things can feel like they're not really shifting is really, if I could shape anything for you, it's a 1% gain, okay? These little baby moments will have in 1% shifts. And I'm only able to clear what your highest self is dictating and helping me clear. Well, you're doing the clearing, just using my information, right? That will be healthy for you to stay stable, okay? And a lot of you blow out anyway, but that's what you've been asking about. I'm going to answer this question in a second. What about those of us who self-isolate from potential triggers and are not overly exposed to people, places, situations? So perfect question. Isolation is a strategy to keep you safe. And it's something that just tuning into you, Jet, I don't know if that's your name, but maybe, Jetpack, maybe that's what you're, like kind of what you're doing, bobbing around. So isolation is a strategy to keep you safe. So I'm going to come back to that question in a second. And because that's also a feedback loop. Okay, I'm going to keep myself very, very safe by not engaging with the world around me and not engaging with anything that has to do with my external environment because I learned early on that wasn't safe for me. So that would be something else to pick up. So your challenge, like let's say you came here to learn in this life how to connect and be seen, which is what this is. This is a fear of being seen, right? This is a fear of having authentic expression. This is a fear of rejection. This is a fear of isolation and being alone. And so that is what's being created because how you see yourself and where you're referencing yourself is from a place of separation and lack and fear. If you were empowered and emboldened in who you were, right? Or you felt like I have no problem with being seen. I want to wildly move into deep connections that are loving and safe. If that was your come from space, like I want to show up, I want to be connected, or let's say I want to move into the world and move around the world as someone who is fully charged, operating at 100, with total self-expression. Okay. And I get the isolation thing because I did that for years as well. And healing can become very isolative and isolating. I'm not really sure if isolative is a word, but anyway. So when it comes to creating your identity and right now you're referencing from isolation instead of referencing from connection. The trick for you, Jet, would be to move into patterns that are keeping you separate from connecting with yourself. And then once you have that stronger connection with self, then you would be able to move into the next indicated action of feeling safe and seen to connect with others. And that might look like in the past, because that's what the brain is referencing from. Relationship with people don't work out. I get betrayed. I don't feel validated or recognized. I don't feel a part of. I feel separate. Those are all separation patterns. Or especially with women that are the women that I work with, they'll be confronted with jealousy or undermining or betrayal or. So when it comes to wanting to experience things and have this work happen faster, that is very much contingent on you letting go of who you think you are when it comes to identity. So again, the 3 pillars: identity, direction, and then the momentum. So the speed is what people focus on the most, right? This is what I want this now, and that's too late. This work isn't happening fast enough, Talie. This work is bullshit. Cannot be loved for me, and anxious attachment. That's exactly right, Jet. So your fear of being seen is driving the isolative behavior, okay? It's driving the isolating behavior. I keep saying that word. So your work in this lifetime is to be fully accepted and loved for who you are. And that requires you to lean into that for yourself first. And then you're going to work through all the patterns that are creating those separation filters so the ego can stay safe. So if the ego had a different reference point, like your connection to your highest self, for example, it would be able to move through that disconnection patterns to self faster. And then that's where the momentum comes in. So your identity is not a lack of feeling. It's not lack, okay, and not separation from. Your identity is I'm identified with the divine within me, and I'm strengthening that connection. How can I connect to my highest potential even more? That's the question you ask yourself every single day. How can I become the best version of myself? How can I get to know who I am at a deeper level and then fall madly in love with who that is and then share that gift with the world? Because the next year, and I have a whole podcast coming out on forecast, is really moving into 4 to 5 things for humanity. Where you are individually is a direct reflection of where the collective is going in terms of identity, direction, and speed. Okay? And we are moving into more coherence. So your lack of coherence right now, let's just say that, okay, right? Or let's say your work, Jet, would be to focus on how you can strengthen your connection with yourself and see yourself and move into healing and compassion with that. And then work through the uncomfortability of those younger versions of you that had all that rejection. Okay? That anxiety is like, I'm afraid you're going to leave me, so let me anxiously attach. You're going to have to do the work on the frequency distortion patterns around the fear of feeling seen and the fear of rejection. And then you would be faced with, or you would have feedback loops, right? Once you set that intention to have opportunities to connect with other people. So you would be presented with people, places, things, situations, feedback loops to have an opportunity to continue to deprogram the separation patterns and the frequency distortion patterns that are keeping you stuck and safe in isolation. So that is, you're very welcome. Thank you guys so much. This is going to be recorded. I'm going to keep this live on my page, and this podcast will come out this week, or I think I might do a bonus podcast this week. So this will come out this week. You guys can answer that too. But this is actually a really fun format, so I'm glad I'm doing this both ways. Okay, so the next thing about time is this level of impatience. This is what I want it now, and that's too late. So again, a couple of the variables that I see people falling into, especially with this work, is impatience, because if we clear something at the level that we're clearing it at, which is very efficient, okay, because humanity and consciousness is at a stage right now where we can actually clear at much deeper and more profound levels. We're just at that level now. That's why I can collapse what I can collapse with you guys. I can work at the level we can work together. But that has to ripple. So if we're working on the level of quantum, the level of the unseen, the level that maybe people don't understand, but those who know, right? that gets cleared at a very different level, at your soul level, okay, at your blueprint level. That is going to have to ripple in to the physical, okay? That's got to ripple into the physical aspect of your life. And that, let's say, reverberation, okay, because again, everything is a feedback loop. That reverb is going to have to go through the layers that you actually haven't cleared yet. So it's almost going to get stuck. It's going to run up against those things that you have to clear. That's why some of you are feeling really, really stuck. You feel like you've been in the same loop, in the same pattern over and over and over again. Yes and no. You might feel like you're in a concentric circle, like you're just in this loop that you're not going anywhere, but you might be running up against the same pattern, but seeing it from a different perspective. And so what we'll do in sessions is just help you pick up more momentum, which is essentially akin to spiritual mass. You just need more momentum to move through those sticky patterns. So this, if you work on nothing else, okay, if you just take the lives and you listen to the podcast and you grab the book and you pick up the, if you read some Substacks, whatever, okay, if you do nothing else but just set the intention to connect to your highest and best evolutionary timeline, what will create more coherence for you? If you do nothing else, but just ask that and focus on that for the next 12 months around how can I become even more connected to my highest expression? What is going to keep me on my highest evolutionary trajectory? Okay, and how can I become more coherent? If you ask those 3 questions, rewatch this, write that shit down, you will shift and you will be faced. Okay, you will actually call in people, places, things, okay, and situations, or you'll be drawn to content, or things will drop into your life that will amplify the patterns that you need to start deprogramming. It's going to give you literally a blueprint. Let's say a blueprint or a framework or instructions or a step or steps of what you need to do next. You'll just get these little breadcrumbs of the next indicated action. So let's see, how do I want to wrap this up? Because I'm kind of feeling like we're pretty good right now, unless you guys have questions. So a lack of coherence is essentially any pattern right now, anything that's working in your life that does not amplify your soul's purpose. And if you don't know what your soul's purpose is, pay attention to what you're giving your attention to. Everybody is being drawn to a deeper spiritual experience right now. There's so many people who are going to be coming online in the personal development, personal growth space, energy healing space. Just look out for this for especially the next year and on. People integrating quantum potential into their work. And that is what the sovereign system is all about that I'm offering for 2025. For those of you who are really starting to get a handle of some of this stuff and you're really, really curious and you want to go deeper with the foundational aspects and move through imposter, self-sabotage, fear, lack of trust of self, and really start dismantling and deprogramming that stuff and move out of isolation, move more towards your potential. The Healers Hub is for you. You're going to be able to do it in community. There's monthly calls. There's a monthly Q&A. You're going to be really supported with content there. I do have advice for disassociation, and I'll give that to you in just a minute. The Healers Hub is going to be a fantastic group for people ongoing, monthly, to just maintain, again, that momentum and ensure that you're starting to create coherence around the right identity. So we will pixelate and repixelate based on our level of awareness and where we are rendering ourselves in time. So disassociation is a time function. It's a time distortion pattern. Okay, essentially your spirit or your consciousness is either ahead or behind time. Okay, you learned early on that it was safe to jump out of the body. And you've been watching yourself, looking outside the mirror of your life, wondering, is this all there is? I know I'm built for more. Why do I always feel like I'm just outside of life? Why do I feel like I'm literally on the bench watching the game of life instead of being in it and interacting with it and having that joie de vivre? Like, I don't feel that. Yes, disassociation happens primarily, at least from the data so far, after thousands of sessions, usually from a traumatic event or how the nervous system recorded trauma. So you felt safe in the body. This is a very, very important aspect of awakening. You can't awaken without it. This is essentially your iPhone, and then your consciousness is Wi-Fi. That connection, the stronger that connection is, the more you hear, Okay, the more you can feel, the more you can tune in and tap in, the more access that you have. So when we disassociate, it's because we've been shot out of our bodies and it's safer not to be in it. But this is where the party is. The more you go in, the more information that you have, the more access that you have. And okay, so then what was I saying before? The disassociation, the time function. Oh yeah, rendering time and space. So we will pixelate as part of our death and rebirth process. We will pixelate and then repixelate based on our level of awareness. So that's how I actually see coherence. We are constantly like an image being projected into the reality that we're living. And I know that you guys know what coherence feels like because you'll feel more empowered during specific times in your life. You feel good in your body. You feel like really on top of your game. You feel in the zone. You feel like really good. You're waking up. Your body's operating. Like your digestion's good. Like your relationships are on fire. That's coherence. You're experiencing a feedback loop that seems to match how you reference yourself on the inside. When we are decohered, okay, when we are kind of blown out, the image of ourselves is really blurry. That's why we can't see ourselves that clearly. So coherence, meaning, something is amiss in your identity, your direction, or where you're headed. There's something that you need to look at within those three things. So again, the work for 2025 for you guys specifically to focus on, again, it doesn't matter how you choose to do that. If this is the only thing that you watch and you're not really interested in anything else, would be how can I become more coherent? How can I connect even more to my highest and innate intelligence and become a more coherent version of myself? When you're in coherence, those three things are in alignment and literally everything else becomes a wildly good time. That's when you experience more synchronicities. That's when you're in less judgment, you have less fear, and you feel more empowered, and you can call in and attract in those things that amplify your highest evolutionary trajectory. Okay, so I think that might be it for today.